Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. Today we're taking a look at several key cards from across a few different archetypes. Now some of these archetypes received support recently, while others are going to be receiving support in the next couple of months. And in all of these cases we've seen key cards for these archetypes spiking in price. It's always important for us to make note of which archetypes are trending upwards, because it may start with one card, but it could definitely lead to other cards from the same theme moving upwards in price as well. So we want to be aware of other potential price spikes that we can put ourselves in a position to take advantage of. Let's get started. Kicking things off, we have Nekroz of P.U.N.K. So we have a new set coming to the OCG called Terminal World 2. Before, we had confirmation that Jurak and Fabled would be getting support, and just recently we found out that the last two archetypes will be Gem Knights and Nekroz. While the Gem Knight support was revealed, the Nekroz support hasn't been shown yet. However, a lot of players have their hopes really high because Nekroz used to be the best deck in the entire game. The deck can do some really powerful things, and it used to be really difficult to play against. Despite it being a ritual deck, it was still incredibly consistent. Regardless of what the new support looks like, Nekroz of P.U.N.K. will definitely be a card to max out on in the deck. You can use it to search for any Nekroz monster, so that'll probably include any of the new monsters that come out. On top of that, while it is on the field, it can bounce 2 extra deck monsters as well. So this is the main Nekroz card that has seen a price spike with the confirmation of upcoming Nekroz support. The original printing is the secret rare from the Secret Forces. This card was incredibly difficult to pull. I think it was maybe 1 in every 6 boxes. It was just that short printed. They used to be down at around $25 to $30, but they're now up at $60 a copy. The card did also get an ultra rare reprint in dual power. They were only a couple of dollars before, but they've now shot right up to around $5 to $7 a piece. I feel like P.U.N.K. would have to get a reprint whenever they do give us the new Nekroz cards, right? Like, if it's anything like how Terminal Revenge was, Nekroz of P.U.N.K. would theoretically be in the equivalent Terminal World set. But of course, a lot of players are going to be chasing after the original printings, which are really expensive just because they've always been really difficult to find. Speaking of which, the next card here is Gem Knight Lady Brilliant Diamond. So the Gem Knight cards seem to be really cool. They have a MathMech circular equivalent now and a way to cheat out a bunch of monsters from the extra deck, which is really cool. I don't know if they're going to be meta, but I mean, they could probably be at least a decent rogue deck, especially if Brilliant Fusion were to be unbanned in the near future. For a ton of the Gem Knight cards, they have multiple printings or were only ever printed in lower rarities, so we don't see too many crazy price spikes. One that we did see, however, is with Gem Knight Lady Brilliant Diamond. This fusion monster requires 3 Gem Knight monsters to make, but it lets you send a Gem Knight from your side of the field to the graveyard to cheat one out of your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. So as much as this card does seem cool, I believe it was actually cut from most of the list that I saw running around online because your extra deck space is just really tight. However, Lady Brilliant Diamond is the card that has just 1 ultra rare printing from back in Clash of Rebellion, so it's quite a difficult card to find. At the moment, the cheapest copy on TCG Player is sitting at $30, though we don't actually have any sold listings on TCG Player over the $20 mark, so take that with a grain of salt. Definitely dig through your old holo bulk to see if you have this card lying around, and it seems that even if you want to play Gem Knights, this is probably a card that you should just look to offload while it's super hyped up. Alright, the next card we have on the list is Stardust Cypher Divine Dragon. This card is a level 12 light dragon synchro monster. It's actually not being used by the Centurion deck, but rather the Blue Eyes deck. So there was a new Blue Eyes structure deck released in the OCG recently, which we here in the TCG should be getting in February, and the cards are actually really good. They're strong enough to the point that I believe Blue Eyes is like a tier 1.5 or tier 2 deck over in the OCG. Blue Eyes is able to consistently make Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, and then use Spirit Dragon's effect to tag into a light dragon synchro monster from your extra deck, and Cypher Divine Dragon is one of the main targets being used in the OCG. This card lets you negate an opponent's activated monster effect, and then non-targeting pop a card on the field. On top of that, it has the ability to protect your other cards from destruction as well. Now that said, the early attention that the card is getting in the OCG has caused players to look at it here in the TCG as well. This used to be a really cheap card at only $1 or so. However, recently we've seen both the original Ultra from Shining Victories and then its Ultra Tin reprint as well shoot up to around the $6 to $8 range. It's hard to say if this card will or will not get a reprint in the near future, but Konami does seem to be planning for Blue Eyes to be meta relevant, since Sage with Eyes of Blue will be getting an OTS Alti printing in OTS Tournament Pack 26. Maybe keep one copy of this card for yourself to use if you are really interested in trying out the Blue Eyes deck, but keep an eye on this card in the coming months and hopefully find a good time to offload it with all of the Blue Eyes hype. On to the next one, let's take a look at Dingirsu, the Orcust of the Evening Star. So in the OCG, we have the Quarter Century Trinity box coming at the end of the year, and in it we have support for a few different themes. One of those themes is Orcust, and the support actually looks really good. The main thing is they have a new Link 1 that can search for a World Legacy monster or the Orcust field spell Orchestrated Babel, and historically Link 1s that can search are usually pretty amazing. Now again, I don't know if the new stuff is enough to make the deck meta relevant. It's really difficult to say something like that nowadays because if the new cards had come out back when the deck was first relevant, they'd be broken, right? But a lot of the time, the new cards are going to be power crept by modern standards. However, regardless, Dingirsu will be a fantastic card for this strategy. It can be XC summoned using an Orcust Link monster except for the new Link 1. On summon, it sends an opponent's card to the graveyard or attaches itself with one of your banished machine monsters, and it can also save one of your cards from being destroyed as well. Fortunately, this card got a reprint in Rarity Collection 1, so just having a copy of this card should be really easy, and so it's just the higher end versions that have jumped in price. The QCR mainly has shot up. They used to be around $5 to $6 a piece, but they're now around $15 as of when I'm filming this, with relatively few copies available. The other version to keep an eye on that is a high rarity printing is the OTS Tournament Pack Alti. Those haven't actually moved too much. They're still higher than the QCRs, coming in at $20 each. Now personally, I really like Alti Ding to go alongside Alti Galatea, but I guess it's just going to depend on when we get the new cards and if they'll be nice enough to upgrade some of the rarities of the other older pieces. So one of the other archetypes getting support in the Quarter Century Trinity box is the P.U.N.K archetype. We don't know what the new cards look like yet, but a lot of players are really hoping that the P.U.N.K cards will be good, since they're already a strong engine that just needs another good archetype to mix it with, or maybe some better pieces to make a fully cohesive strategy. No P.U.N.K Foxy Tune is definitely the card to keep an eye on for the P.U.N.K theme. A lot of the cards were printed in lower rarities or were made much more affordable once they eventually got reprinted. Foxy Tune is really the only piece that's somewhat difficult to find. It was an ultra rare back in the Grand Creators set, and it got a secret rare reprint in Battles of Legend Monstrous Revenge that made it much more accessible. Of course, it does have those higher rarity Collector's Rare and QCR printings as well. The thing is, the card hasn't seen very much meta play recently at all. It was good alongside the Gold Pride cards, but that deck was never really able to take off. Despite that, players remain hopeful about the deck. Before, either the Ultra or Secret was just a couple of dollars, but we've now seen the Ultras go up to $5 to $6, while the Secrets are $4 to $5. I feel inclined to think that Foxy Tune will be sort of like Brionac, where it should be reprinted in whatever set it is that the new cards are going to come in, but that's never a guarantee. With Foxy Tune being pretty cheap right now, and having a history of getting expensive when it is meta relevant, it may not be a bad idea to consider picking up a set now for yourself to use down the road. Okay, so this is a strange one. We have Cunning of the Six Samurai. This is a Six Samurai card that I think honestly is pretty easy to forget about, since there are just a bunch of better cards from the archetype. Cunning is a quick play spell card that lets you send one of your Six Samurais to the graveyard, and then special summon one back from either player's graveyard to your side of the field. So Six Samurai's got some new support in Rage of the Abyss, and one of the cards lets you search for a Six Samurai quick play spell card. The main card that you want to search for, I believe, is Asceticism, and Asceticism also isn't once per turn, so a lot of the time that's going to be better, but I guess Cunning could be an interesting card. Maybe if you don't have a valid Asceticism target, Cunning could still help to generate you Bushido counters. You could use it to dodge cards like Valor or Infinite Impermanence if you really want your Six Samurai monsters effect to resolve. And then of course in a grind game, this card could really help to bring back something like Xian, which is a really strong boss monster in a simplified game state. Cunning has a few different printings. All of the common versions are quite cheap, and so it's just the holo versions that are pricey now. This is historically one of the cheaper altis that we've seen in the game, but now there's basically none on TCG Player. There's one sold listing at $60, but most of the others don't get much higher than around $40. The other holo version is the super rare, which is $30 lowest at the moment, but really there's just 2 sold listings at $15, and then the rest are at most $5 a piece. Remember, just because a card can't be bought below a certain price doesn't mean that it's actually going to move at that price, so definitely do your own due diligence and check multiple sources when you guys are looking to pick up recently hyped up cards. If I were you guys though, I would definitely be looking to sell this card off for whatever value possible. And finally, the last card we have for today is Abyss Shark. This card's a pretty simple one. If you control all water monsters, you can special summon this from your hand and then search for a level 3, 4, or 5 fish monster. And if you use it to make a number exceeds monster, you can also treat this card as a level 3 or 4. Now on the surface, this card is really cool. It's a free body that special summons itself out really easily, and it is a searcher on top of that. The cool thing is that this card is actually pretty useful alongside the new shark cards that just came out in Rage of the Abyss, and while it's not exactly good or meta, I think that some players are trying to make a shark deck revolving around these cards to try and spam out Bahamut Shark and Totally Awesome. The sad thing is that Abyss Shark is something you probably want to run in multiples, but it was only ever printed in arguably the worst set ever printed, Duels from the Deep. There was literally so little value in that set that Konami had to reprint Forbidden Droplet in there randomly in order to give people something to chase for, so Abyss Shark is actually quite a difficult card for people to find. For a little while, this card was down at anywhere from $5 to $7, however recently the card has jumped up to right around the $10 mark. Nothing too crazy, but this is definitely something to be aware of because there will be some players looking for this card at your locals. It's probably not something that very many people are going to have in their trade binders since no one really opened the set, so make sure that you throw it into yours if you do have it and see if you can get some value out of it before the card is eventually reprinted. Alright guys, that is all we have for today's episode. Definitely a lot of other stuff for us to talk about. I do eventually want to do a sort of dedicated video to talk about Ryzeal and Malice and the cards that you guys should be picking up now before those decks do come out, because a lot of those cards we've covered here and there across market watches in the past, but I kind of want to have it all in one place so that you guys can be as prepared as possible, because Crossover Breakers is going to be a game-changing set. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's market watch, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.